Vacuum with the lights.
The car we're about to crash test is a death trap. This couple wanted to buy it, but they wouldn't have survived an accident. Not in this deceptively immaculate bargain.
Off now, go on, you off.
This car is a ringer.
Mr. Grunwell, Roger Cook, Central Television. Tell us about your car stealing activities.
What?
Your car stealing activities. We filmed you stealing a Shogun in the Checkers car park.
Me?
You.
Don't think so.
Yes, you did, and the Shogun itself will be turning up here any minute.
I don't think so.
You did steal it. We actually filmed you doing it. We caught this car thief red-handed, and as you'll see, he's off to get his baseball bat. His gang, one of our targets, specializes in stealing cars like this Shogun, high-value four-wheel drives. They're the kind of gang for whom even the manufacturers have a grudging respect.
We would describe the professionals that take cars as being extremely cunning and extremely knowledgeable. I mean, theirs is big business. Make no mistake about that.
And so we'd make no mistake with the Shogun gang. We ensured that if they took the bait and stole the car, we'd catch them with it. Technicians installed a secret tracking device, an electronic bug, which would record on computer the car's every movement. First stop, a pub car park. We were laying a very tasty bait on the gang's very own patch, as we sought to provide one example of a very big problem.
Because 30% of all crime in this country now is auto crime, and it is the fastest rising crime. Something like 1.3 billion is the cost to the public of this country of stolen vehicles. Something like 635,000 vehicles are stolen a year. I think that's something like 1 every 58 seconds. And, you know, that's quite frightening.
Especially if you don't know what you're getting into. Rob Bennett unwittingly bought what's called a ringer, a stolen car which had been given the identity of a wreck. The advert promised superb performance, but we discovered that a similar Peugeot carrying the same number plate had been written off a year earlier.
My husband was travelling south when the car crossed over the inside lane and smashed into the rock at the side of the road. On impact, the engine left the vehicle, bounced across the roof, across the carriageway and landed in the central reservation. It was very badly damaged. It was a complete write-off.
The car now on sale was a different car, but with the same identification numbers. The man who ringed it, whom we tracked down tonight, had bought that motorway wreck to use its identity on a stolen car.
Well, I bought the car in good faith. It's quite a good car. I've got quite a bargain. But if you think there's something wrong with it, let's go and get it checked out.
So we did, at a firm called Autoline, which specializes in checking rebuilt cars. And the news was bad.
Right, the first thing we check, Rob, is the VIN plate. And the number on here should correspond to the registration document. Now, in this case, we can see this one's been tampered with and disturbed. I mean, normally they're quite tight there. They wouldn't make that noise. The rivets here are not factory rivets. So somebody's actually been playing with this VIN plate. So what I'm actually saying to you, just looking at this very quickly, this car is a ringer. Yeah. It's not the car it purports to be.
All right.
Yeah.
Rob, did you have any idea there might be problems?
No idea at all when I bought it, no.
They've stolen this vehicle, removed the original VIN plate from it, that one there, and the engine number. They've removed that. The car that was a write-off, they've taken the identity of it, so that's the registration plates, the VIN plate, the engine number, and put them onto this vehicle. They've cut out this inner scuttle bulkhead panel,
which carries the chassis number,
and slotted it in and welded it in.
I just want my money back.
how much did you pay?
7,700 for it.
Is that money you'd saved up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's money I've been saving a long time for a car. Been looking around for a car like this for a long time. And when it comes up and you find out it's the wrong one, you know, obviously you're a bit upset about it.
And understandably so. So we turned to the man who sold him the stolen Peugeot. Car dealer Paul Franklin, it transpires, is also a rally driver, using a car supplied by Peugeot. But when challenged, he responded with threats of violence against the Cook Report team. By now, we'd discovered the whereabouts of the man from whom Rob's Peugeot was originally stolen. But there is a more radical way of ringing a car. It involves cutting two vehicles in half, and whilst it's more secure for the ringer, it's much more dangerous for the eventual purchaser. George Austin's son Gareth and two friends were killed when their ringed car hit a tree and split in two.
The car spun out of control on a bend, and on impact with the tree split completely in half. We subsequently found out that the car had in fact been two cars welded together, and that Gareth unfortunately went with the back half of the car and was thrown into the middle of the road, where he sustained a fractured skull.
So we decided to tackle the subject in our own way, starting here in one of the many car graveyards up and down the country, where vehicles like this one can be caused to rise from the dead. And it's done by giving the identity of this car, illegally of course, to another similar car which has been stolen. And this is how Keith Lancaster used to do it. On his own admission, he's a bit of an Arthur Daly.
Cool. I thought you said it starts. Right, there we go. Right, there we go. Trying to cut through the floor.
Keith Lancaster wasn't too fazed by this little incident. After all, he'd been a professional ringer for 30 years.
Quick, quick, more quick. Come on, quick. There's petrol coming out.
Though he's been jailed many times for car crimes, he says not one of his ringers has ever been detected. How much have you made?
Well, let's put it this way. Over the last 12 years, we've got through about £8 million worth of cars.
A lot of money. So why have you stopped?
Basically because the sentences are getting quite heavy now. Over the last 30 years, I've spent 15 years, 1 month approximately, and the risks are getting too heavy.
I mean, some lifers get out in less than 15 years.
A lot of lifers do get out in less than 15 years. I've done over a life sentence over dealing in stolen vehicles.
But old skills are not easily forgotten as he begins to cut the second car in half. This is what they call a cut and shut, where one half of a stolen car is joined to the other half of a crashed car. The crashed car, in this case the front, which has had a rear ender, has the identification numbers on it, and this half, the stolen car, has none. So to all intents and purposes, the stolen car has disappeared. The finished vehicle, as you'll see, will fool trade and public alike. Meanwhile, would our targeted four-wheel drive gang be tempted by the Shogun in the pub car park? We're in the control room at Data Track headquarters because tonight's the night the thieves will probably take the bait. The thieves, if they do take it, won't know that it's fitted with very sophisticated electronic tracking, which will enable us to place it within 20 or 30 yards anywhere in Britain. As if on cue, the thief, Tony Grunwell, arrives. At first, he's suspicious of the Cook Report van. He's in, but there's a problem with the ignition lock. While Grunwell keeps watch, a colleague tries to start the car. This time, they're successful. The alarm's gone off. She's on the move. It's moving in a southwesterly direction at 30 miles an hour. Track it on the other screen. It's turned left out of the pub car park. We're actually looking at this on an Ordnance Survey map, so accurate is the tracking. On the way to auction are 2 cars in one. Every year it's estimated that the car sharks recycle the identities of 200,000 wrecks and attach them to 200,000 similar stolen cars. Our ringed car obviously looks good enough to fool the public, but with the auctioneer's help, we sought to test whether it would also fool hard-nosed dealers. And it did. Roger Cook, Central TV. You've just bought this car. What do you think of it?
Not too bad. Bit of value for the price.
Do you mind telling me what you paid for it?
2,450 provisionally.
Would it surprise you if I told you this was, in fact, 2 cars?
Yes, it would.
Can I show you some photographs?
Yep.
Did you look it over beforehand?
I didn't actually. I just seen it and it just looked cheap and looked like the bargain of the night.
But obviously not.
And obviously not.
He agreed to advertise the car for us to see if the public would be taken in too. The father whose son was killed by a cut-and-shut car says the ringers share the blame with others.
I feel that any car that's been in an accident should in fact be written off and put in a crusher. I don't think in any way that these cars should come back on the road. Clearly the people who put it together have a responsibility as well, but I do blame the insurance companies for not having a tighter hold on what's going on.
This should be the fate of all written-off cars, according to General Accident, who provided us with our wrecks. But they're among the very few major insurers who refuse to sell such scrap for rebuilding. Surely the industry must accept that if these wrecks and their identities weren't so readily available, there wouldn't be any ringers.
Well, no, I agree. It would almost eliminate the problem. I think that probably there still would be some, but it would largely eliminate the problem, yes. If those vehicles, which are seriously damaged, were crushed and destroyed on full time.
But he admits that progress to that end is painfully slow. By now, the police had confirmed that Rob's reborn Peugeot was a most professional piece of ringing. Paul Franklin was in Ireland last month for the start of his most recent rally. Waiting outside for him, Rob Bennett and his £7,000 ringer. This is the car that the fuss has been about. That is a car that the police and the experts say is a ringer. What do you say?
That's the car that I've bought and sold. As far as I'm concerned, there's nothing wrong with the car. If the police say the car is a ringer, then let them come and speak to me about it.
No, it is a ringer. It is definitely a ringer. What have you got to say? This scuttle has been changed. The only welding in this car is the changed scuttle. This is not a rebuild as you claim. Everything's as it came from the factory on the stolen car, except for a small amount of welding here in the engine compartment. This car is a ringer. It was stolen to match, and an identity of another car applied. What's more, we'd actually met the man from whom the car had been stolen.
I've had a good look round the car. There's 4 things I definitely remember about the car. There was scratches on the bonnet where it looks like someone sat on it. There's a mark on the rear wheel where it hit the curb. Inside the car, the pedal rubber was missing from the accelerator pedal, and the map reading light wasn't working. So, I mean, with all those things, it's definitely the car that was stolen from outside my flat.
We have the expert opinion of both Autoline and the police that this is not the car that it says it is. The engine number's been restamped, the scuttle's been replaced. Nothing else has been touched on that motor car.
The car is not a winged car.
How do you know?
How do you know it is?
Because expert opinion has said that it is. Well, the police have told us it is. Autoline have said that.
Well, they're wrong.
But it's Frankland who's in the wrong. He'd waited 2 months for a stolen car to receive the identity of the wreck he'd already registered. This phony service record fills the gap in the ringed car's history. However, the garage doesn't exist and the servicing was never done, not on a piece of scrap. So what have you got to say to the man standing next to you who bought from you something that's not worth the paper the logbook's printed on, really?
I'm still insisting that they are wrong. Who does the car belong to now, then?
It still belongs to Rob.
Well, then. He still owns the car. I mean, are you unhappy with the car, apart from what these people are saying?
Well, it's a stolen car. Would you be happy driving about in a stolen car?
It's not a stolen car.
It's been proved it is a stolen car.
It hasn't been proved.
It has. I'm afraid it has.
Indeed, the police, using techniques the villains don't know, had proved conclusively that Rob's car was stolen. Shocked by these revelations, Peugeot now say they are seriously considering their relationship with Paul Frankland. Meanwhile, 5 other suspected ringers linked to Frankland's brothers have been reported to the police. The stolen Shogun was still being tracked wherever it went. We knew where it was each night and filmed it moving off each morning. This time it was in the hands of another gang member, Colin Gregory. Every time the car moved, even a yard, on its journeys around Essex, that movement was transmitted to a central computer. It was moved from a block of flats to some farm outbuildings and finally via a roundabout route to number 1 Turp Avenue, Thurrock. There were 2 main theories about what might happen to our Shogun. The first was that it would be spirited away onto the continent or North Africa before the heat was on. The second was that it would be hidden away somewhere until the heat was off. And that's what appears to have happened to our Shogun. It spent the best part of 4 months in a garage behind number 1 Turp Avenue. The owner of the house said she knew nothing about a stolen Shogun and sent for a friend, Barry Mead, to explain.
Somebody told me that this was a repossession job and they'd spent all this money on it, a big sob story, and I've ended up with a big problem because of it. And I'm not happy at all.
We were given the keys and told to help ourselves. Who told you the sob story?
Mr. Cook, I've already spoke to you about that.
Yeah,
I don't know these people at all, right?
Are you frightened of them?
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not the type of guy to get frightened of things like that, but I am worried because of people like the family that live in this house.
Whose garden furniture and toys surrounded the partly concealed Shogun. Next stop, the man who stole it. Mr. Grunwell. Roger Cook, Central Television. Tell us about your car stealing activities. Tony Grunwell has a reputation for violence and a decade-long list of convictions for car thefts and burglaries. Yes, you did, and the Shogun itself will be turning up here any minute.
I don't think so.
You did steal it. We actually filmed you doing it. And passed it on to Mr. Gregory. And there's the Shogun. Now, we'd like you to explain to us why it was you stole that vehicle parked outside.
Well, it's still no vehicle.
We filmed you stealing it. There was a concealed camera in a van next to it, and you were filmed stealing it.
Don't think so.
We think so. The vehicle also has electronic tracking in it, and we've tracked everywhere it's been since. And we've just picked it up from the house where it was hidden while the heat was on, as it were.
Off.
Get what?
Off.
Haven't you got any
Off.
That's the car you stole.
Off.
We filmed you stealing.
Off.
We filmed you stealing it.
Go on. Off. Lot of ya. Kiss my bicycle back.
This is a public right of way.
Go.
We're not on your property, and this is the vehicle. This is the vehicle. This is a public. Don't hit. Don't
Get that off.
That's the vehicle you stole.
Off now. Go on, you. Off. Come on.
Grunwell even had a go at some of his neighbours, one of whom had had the temerity to criticise his language.
Get the out of here now. Get that off my head. Get it off my property.
The gang's plan had been thwarted. The Shogun was worth £25,000 on the open market, and now they'd lost the chance to ring it or sell it. Their most likely plan of action was to wait, as Paul Franklin did, until they could match the right wreck with the right stolen car. But one less stolen car won't prevent the present epidemic.
Well, I think it's very akin to cancer or AIDS. It is something that is eating away at our society as a particular section of the community with all the cunning and skills necessary in order to carry out these assaults against people's property, eats into the fabric of our society as much as cancer does, and it's something that we've got to tackle.
But there's no easy answer.
Take it easy, take it easy.
And this was Grunwell's only answer when publicly exposed after 10 years of stealing other people's cars. The Shogun survived, almost intact. Our 2-in-1 Honda was a smash hit with the punters. But if it had a punter at the wheel, could it survive a smash as an untouched car would? We took it to the Motor Industry Research Association to find out.
Okay, cue with the lights.
With us, the young couple who were on the point of buying when we stopped the sale, David Wilson and Sarah Timmins. This is why we took on the villains tonight. As the welds on the cut and shut gave way, the space occupied by the driver disappeared.
I think I don't have any legs left.
I mean, would you have bought that car?
Yeah. More than likely, yeah.
So you could have been there?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shows you've got to be careful, doesn't it?
Definitely.
And that was to be a present, wasn't it?
I'd like it to have been, yeah.
The car is a potential death trap. The occupant would have suffered injuries to their chest and to their pelvis, and they would not have walked away from this one.
Looking at the local papers this week, you know, they're selling cars. There are pages and pages and pages of the raw materials like this for unscrupulous people out there to go and rebuild.
Does that frighten you?
I think it should frighten everybody.
Tonight, police seized the stolen Peugeot and have felt it necessary to give protection to the man who bought it and his family.